other guests, members, and our interpreter, Jamie. Um, I do want to remind you that the Mayor's Commission for Citizens with Disabilities broadcasts, I believe, are live streamed on the city's YouTube channel and are archived on the City of Omaha website. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. Um, it's Typically, in the past, we've had these meetings rebroadcast at 7 o'clock, currently on channel 22 of Cox. So that's something we probably need to talk about. Um, but you can see the video of these meetings can be viewed at the Disabilities Commission website at www.cityofomaha.org. Click on the mayor's office and then click on the Disability Commission. Um, let's see, the mission, purpose, and mission and purpose of the Mayor's Commission is to promote the quality of life, accessibility, and equity in all aspects related to the City of Omaha on behalf of and in cooperation with citizens of Omaha who experience disabilities and their families. To this end, we have several tasks that we're charged with. We advise and assist the mayor, the city council, city department heads, and other City of Omaha personnel on issues of access, representation, employment, housing, quality of life, and quality of life affecting citizens with disabilities and their respective families. We serve as a resource for Omaha citizens with disabilities and their families to bring concerns forward and achieve resolutions regarding issues affecting them. Um, we publicize to to the citizens of Omaha the role of the Mayor's Commission and the resources available to assist citizens with disabilities. There's just too many citizens in there. Employers, housing representatives, business owners, engineers, and architects, and others who have a role in bettering the life of Omaha citizens. We work to promote the awareness of the general public on the capabilities, needs, and desires of persons with disabilities. And we just spoke about this, we work to publicly recognize the efforts of employers, businesses, schools, organizations, and others who have demonstrated outstanding support of programs and services for persons with disabilities. We serve to advocate for accessibility issues and implement plans and projects to improve services for people with disabilities. And we review and implement plans and projects for advocating services for people with disabilities in the City of Omaha. Um, now, we will do introductions, but I would suggest that you have a pen and paper handy to take notes, because we'll try and go around at the end and have folks um, do announcements for their prospective organizations or for any other issues involving people with disabilities and their families in the city. So have a paper and pen handy. Um, let's see. So with that, we'll go around and do some quick introductions. First and foremost, or I don't want to say that. First, my name is Mark Smith. I'm a faculty member at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, Monroe Meyer Institute. I work in the University Center on Disabilities there. Our job is to work to build the capacity of services and supports for people with disabilities. I'm also a parent of an individual with an intellectual disability, and I have a younger sibling who's an individual with an intellectual disability. Um, so I get to wear lots of hats. So we'll do in-house, and then we'll go to the Brady Bunch there. So, Nancy?
And I'm Nancy Floral, and I work with the Nebraska Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired. We're the vocational rehabilitation agency that serves individuals that are blind, visually impaired, and deafblind.
Thanks, Nancy. And Megan?
Megan Walls. With my company, Assistology, we do consulting and training in the areas of assistive technology, accessibility, and inclusion. And I work across the lifespan and across environments. So I'm here to keep in mind the needs of the greater disability community.
Thanks, Megan. How about Laura?
Laura Young with the League of Human Dignity. We have service coordination for Medicaid waiver, and we're a center for independent living.
Thanks, Laura. And Eric?
Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Olson.
Good to see you, Eric. Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jen Pollock, and I facilitate elementary special education services for Millard Public Schools.
Thanks, Jen. And Rachel?
Hello, I'm Rachel Johnson. I currently work as a service coordinator with individuals with developmental disabilities, and I live with a spinal cord injury, so I like to represent the needs of those populations.
Thanks, Rachel. And Taryn?
I'm Taryn, and I work as a social worker coordinator at Brookstone Village for the elderly and for disabilities. And I also have a disability myself. And I also mentored at Quality Living, a brain and spinal cord injury facility.
Thanks, Taryn. Good to see you. And Mel?
Hi, I'm Melanie Davis, and I am a second-year University Center trainee under Mark, and I'm also a person with a disability.
I have to tell you that Melanie did inform me she got home from Minnesota last night at 2 a.m. So if her
I'm
closed,
here.
but she's
Sort
here. Melanie does a terrific job for us, so we're pleased. And I just want to make a quick comment that through this past 15 months, 16 months, and through COVID and all the things we've really been challenged by, I really appreciate the fact that this particular group, the commission members, have really stuck in there and really continue to work on behalf of our population of individuals with disabilities and their families in Omaha. I'm very grateful. Even when we were just doing lots of Zooming, uh, there was still an edge of seriousness and committedness to the work, and I think that really speaks to the fact that we have an outstanding set of commission members. So thanks to you all. I really appreciate it, and I know that the people that we're here to represent certainly do as well. Um, let's see. Quorum acknowledgement. I don't think we've had a quorum for about 15 months, and maybe that will change down the road a little bit, but I certainly respect folks who are only able to come in via virtual means. It's great to have Megan and Nancy here because it's like it's just not me and Kat and Jamie, uh, but I, but still, I really want to mention to the commission members that do what is within your comfort level in terms of as we can start to open things back up, if that's fair enough. Um, of course, not having a quorum for 15 months means that we have not had official minutes. We're still continuing to put together draft agendas. We still continue to keep notes of our meetings, and of course, these are recorded and are available on the mayor's website. We're still trying to do our work, but we do not have minutes to approve or a quorum to have an official meeting, and that's just the way it is. What do we do? So with that, unfortunately, we had a speaker we were trying to line up. That individual had pretty significant conflict and certainly understandable. And I won't go into all that. But in that individual's stead, Megan Walls, our vice chair, has very very nicely stepped up to talk a little bit about the program that she runs, um, and maybe take a few questions and take it away, Megan. Megan is going from her commission hat to her presenter hat. Very good.
Do I need to have both of them up? I'm not sure what to do here.
Megan, you came prepared.
You have to share the screen with them.
There you go.
And then you can slideshow from the beginning.
Thanks, Kat. So as Mark mentioned, I'm Megan Walls, and I am the vice chair on the commission. In this moment, I'm going to take a few minutes to share with you about the work that I do through Assistology, and tell you a little bit about my journey and myself, so kind of sets the stage for how I have the lens that I do on what I do. My journey started a long time ago, well, hopefully not that long ago, but with the formation of Children's Respite Care Center here in Omaha. My mom was one of the co-founders, and so I was immersed in disability services from a young age, and then through volunteering there and working there, exposed to education, therapy, families, and all the related services that impact individuals with disabilities and their families up to the age of 21. And then through a passion around that and tinkering with things, I decided to go into an emerging field called rehab engineering. Took a journey through St. Mary's College in Notre Dame, Indiana, into grad school in Chicago, and got my master's in rehab engineering, which is a branch of bioengineering focusing in assistive technology and rehab universal design, really looking to remove barriers for participation in community spaces and activities. And so did some work with Easter Seals in Massachusetts in assistive technology work, came back to Omaha to run the rehab department at CRCC, and after being gone 10 years, quickly realized that not a lot, or more than 10 years, not a lot had changed for families or community entities on resources for assistive technology and accessibility that kind of work across environments and the lifespan to provide some continuity in those services and advance the opportunities for inclusion in kind of all environments in our community. And I'm also an adjunct in the Department of Gerontology at UNO, where I teach a class that's highly focused in universal design and accessibility as it relates to older adults specifically. So with that, I formed Assistology, where ultimately we're working to provide services that help individuals pursue and achieve their goals, and help businesses increase their ability to be inclusive, have inclusive spaces, programs, products, activities, and the gamut. As I mentioned in my intro, I work across the lifespan, so children and adults with disabilities, organizations that serve individuals with disabilities wanting to have better spaces, better programming, better supports, and then partnering with area businesses, professionals, or other organizations that are looking to advance accessible and promote accessible opportunities in our community. Ultimately, my big vision is that I want to make an impact in changing the way that people are able to access their world. So ultimately, we're living in more inclusive communities. And so doing that through the type of services that I offer is my long-term goal and baby steps. And one of the ways that impact can be made is through the use of assistive technology. And assistive technology sounds really scary to people sometimes, but it really is just anything that makes it easier for you to do something, whether that's blue light blocking glasses that help reduce your migraines, or that's a push button can opener, so because you can't twist the knob, or using smart speaker systems to have better control of your house. Across the gamut, high tech, low tech, but it removes a barrier to do what you want to do. And there are a lot of areas in life that assistive technology can come into play to increase independence, quality of life, reduce barriers. And I've put a few kind of interesting ones on the screen because sometimes they're not what you'd think of as assistive technology, or they're just kind of really outside the box, but they really help. So at the very top left, these are called portion control baskets, but I found them to be really useful for individuals who it's really not safe for them to handle a big boiling pot of water, whether they use one-handed access in the kitchen or for other any other particular reason, balance challenges, reduced strength, dexterity. They allow you to, they're little strainers that rest on the pot. So they allow you to cook food in the strainer and boil it. So things you'd boil, vegetables, potatoes, pasta, rice, and then you can strain the water right back into the pot and transfer from the strainer to a bowl, making cooking activities a little bit safer for certain individuals. It's not marketed at any assistive technology catalog, which is why I always advocate for working with a professional that specializes in assistive technology and not going off a as seen on TV type of approach for solving the barriers that you're experiencing. And I can't actually see, hold on. Oh, so the top right is just think of a soda fountain lever where you would at a restaurant go fill up your cup. It's a tap that goes onto a gallon jug. And so you don't have to pick up and pour a big gallon jug. It could be juice or water or milk. So really helping with nutritional independence, hydration, kind of across the gamut. Guess what? It also works really well for 5 and 7-year-olds who want to be independent but like to make messes. And then in the bottom right, it's kind of hard to see in the picture, but the, what game is this? The Uno cards have Braille embossed numbers and colors at the top in the corners. And I brought this up to a group of 6th graders when we were talking about assistive technology, and I asked them, if you were going to play Uno and you were blind, like, how would you participate in this activity? And bless him, the little boy goes, well, I just asked my friend what my cards were. And I was like, well, kind of defeats the purpose of the game. So Hasbro has done it on Legos, and they did it on Uno cards, but just really removing those barriers to socialization and recreation and engaging in life for children and adults who read Braille and don't read Braille. So just a few things that also are not that costly. So kind of trying to remove the stigma around assistive technology that it's really expensive. That being said, access to assistive technology continues to be a really big challenge, largely due to funding. And it's complicated and not real interesting, so I'm going to keep it brief, but there are different types of assistive technology, and the kind that insurance pays for are the kinds of things you go work with a doctor or a therapist for: communication devices, mobility equipment, those respiratory, insulin-related, medically, what they consider medically necessary. Non-medically necessary, which is the category that I tend to work in, although I like to say the outcomes from using the types of things that I implement have a positive medical benefit and could be considered medically necessary maybe in the future. You have to get a little bit more creative with funding for these. You could, through the DD waiver, which I'll talk about in a minute, through the A&D waiver, grants, private pay. Easter Seals has some alternate financing programs, both for small items and large items that are very, very low interest loans United Cerebral Palsy of Nebraska has a client assistance grant that if you meet the criteria, and it isn't cerebral palsy specific, if you have a neurological component to your diagnosis, you may qualify, and that gives you access of up to $1,000 a year in assistive technology that is really broad for a reason. And then there's different associations or foundations that may provide funding as well. In other situations, if you're working, if it's through work or education, the pathways are a little bit different in who you work with and what access you have. But there are methods through vocational rehab type cases, if you're within an educational program or making a workplace accommodation that's not VR related. So I always advocate for talking through your situation to figure out what is your best path. I'm happy to have that conversation with anyone who's looking for assistive technology solutions to try to connect them to the right combination of professional services and potential funding sources, if whether or not I'm a good fit for what they're looking for at that time. I mentioned access to assistive technology services through the DD waiver. The Systology, am not able to provide the assistive technology support through the aged and disabled waiver for a long, complicated reason. So call me if you want to know more about that. But I am able to provide it through the comprehensive DD or the DD Adult Day HHS waiver. And it allows me to work with a family, an individual and or their family, and assess their home environment for barriers to independence and make assistive technology and or environmental type recommendations that will help them pursue their goals and reduce some of the, remove some of the barriers that they're experiencing. And then it's called an environmental modification assessment. It is not structural. I did not pick the name of the service, but it is not a structural home modification assessment. In terms of environmental modification, it may be looking at layout, lighting, visual cues, or then assistive technology and safety measures that could go into place. The process for accessing that, because it is a service or that is built into or can be built into an individual's budget for up to $1,000 annually, and a family needs to request it, or an individual needs to request it of their service coordinator, and then their service coordinator and I communicate. It goes into the portal, and then once I have the referral, I work directly with the family to come into the home, set goals, expectations, and work together to come up with the right assistive technology solution, and then hopefully connect them to a funding entity to purchase items, as appropriate. So that, and that's available annually. So if someone's living situation or goals or health condition changes, they can come back and access it the following year as well. Kind of switching a little bit into how I work with the kind of community entities. On the building and design aspect, I work with design firms, architecture firms, or organizations who hire me because they're building a building and they want input on accessibility with a universal design twist. So I'm bringing my background of understanding complex interactions and disability types and the universal design elements that go into designing spaces and services and providing consultation that way. I also do what I call ADA plus audits. So I will go in and help assess where a business is as far as ADA compliance, and then I also incorporate universal design elements into the review and recommendations on what they can do, since they're already going to be making changes, making ones that go beyond the very bare minimum that is federally required to make decisions that actually make sense for the people that will be using the space. Sensory-based services. So I work with schools or organizations to create sensory rooms or mobile sensory equipment kits that they can use when they go out into the community, and provide training around how to use the equipment, but then also giving some basic information on best practices in the room, understanding sensory systems and how to support different elements of those systems, and then consultation is needed. But more than just making recommendations and setting up the room and teaching them how to use the equipment, I try to provide as many accessory materials or resources as possible. So this image in the bottom left is a snapshot of kind of a manual that I make that outlines what the item, it helps them do inventory by telling them what they have and how many, but then it really lays out what that item is, how they use it, how the client or the student may interact with it, what type of sensory needs might be met by using this type of item, so that if you're working with an individual who you know really thrives off of receiving tactile sensory input, you can identify 5 things that you may have in this room or this space, and then work to figure out what the student or client responds to best. And these sheets will kind of help. And then also maintenance, cleaning, troubleshooting, so that they have this resource so that they can, whatever program they're launching can be successful once I hand everything off and walk away. Supporting disability inclusion in the workplace is just an ongoing effort to promote the need for disability as part of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts and strategies, and bringing it to the conversation as an intentional strategic element of what organizations are doing. And so sometimes that's training, whether it's around culture of inclusion or whether that's specific to how to create greater accessibility of your services through a lens of inclusion, or really digging in on consultation-wise from what are your services, environments, products, operationally, what does it all look like? And then again, if it's a non-voc rehab related accommodation request, I can support businesses in that as well. So I will clarify, if an individual is working with vocational rehab and they're making an accommodation request, if they call in another entity, they're going to utilize the Assistive Technology Partnership, in Lincoln is their partner, I guess, on that. So collaboration. I do my work in partnership with organizations and agencies who are also trying to have positive impact for the disability community. And whether we're working on an initiative together or I'm working directly to the benefit of their clients on their behalf, that's really how things are moving forward in some ways, and getting done is by forming those partnerships and those relationships. So as my contact information is provided, I can be called or text at 402-500-0667, or my email is assistologyomaha@gmail.com. My website is assistology.com, and there's lots more details on the work I'm doing. I have a blog and some other things, resources there. And the last slide that I have is just links to the, I forgot to mention this one. UCP of Nebraska has a Tech Tools Lending Library. There's 4 of them around the city, I think. I host one of them, and they are essentially assistive technology lending libraries where individuals, families, educators, anyone can borrow items to try them out whether it's just like, hey, I'm having people over and I need some yard games that are accessible for the weekend, or I'm trying to find a toy that will engage my child so that we can do something. You can borrow them and return them just like you would at a library at no cost. So there's a link on here to the inventory and those programs, a link to the client assistance grant through UCP of Nebraska, the alternative financing program for Easter seals. There's the Assistive Technology Partnership of Nebraska, which is the Tech Act program for the state, which houses a lot of services in that area. And then the specific direct link to the DD waiver service information on my website, because it has some FAQ sheets and some kind of, do you fit in this bucket or this bucket for who you talk to, and a little explainer video as well. So that is the short and kind of quick, I guess, explanation of the different types of things that I do. More nerve-wracking standing in front of all of you people on the screen. I can see you. But happy to take questions, or if there are specific pieces of information people are wondering about.
I have a couple things, Megan. One, will you go back a slide to your contact information? I want to make sure that that's pretty clear for people. I'll also put it in the notes. And my second wondering is, should we put some of those resources that you mentioned on our Facebook page, for example, for people to access after the meeting today?
Yeah, I think that's, we can also then use that. We can put the direct link, since it is live broadcast. We can just pull the link and copy and paste the resources below it. I think that's easy.
Okay, one quick thing, Megan, I want to go all the way back to the beginning. You mentioned your experience in CRCC, and I wanted to mention that that's the Children's Respite Care Center here in Omaha. So
yes,
for those who aren't so hot with acronyms, but a long time respite service available to folks here in town.
Yes. So 0 to 21 started as medically based childcare, and now also has an inclusive preschool program and behavior health service supports, rehab therapy supports, and great. Still tends to be a hidden gem in some ways. I talk to a lot of families who aren't really aware still that that's out there, whether it's because through service coordination they didn't hear about it, or they're drinking from a fire hose and haven't sorted through everything yet. But there's one on 88th and Blondo, and then one in Millard as well.
Megan, do you know if the ATP, or Assistive Technology Partnership, if they still have their AT for All program where people can borrow or can be loaned equipment to try?
They do. So it's AT, the number 4, ALL dot.
I think it's
.org?
GOV.
Or .gov?
I think so. I can check it.
Okay. And yes, and that's statewide. So sometimes it takes a little while to get things because it might be out in COZAD. But they do still have it. I think Brooke Harry is the person that's overseeing it, and would be able to answer questions. They also do have kind of a demonstration and loan center in Lincoln.
It's .com.
Okay, AT number 4 ALL.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Thanks.
So one thing I was interested, as I heard you talking about, it sounds like you have a variety of projects, different activities, whether that might be consulting with architects or businesses, or all the way back to supporting individuals and finding what they're doing. So I was curious, like, what's a regular month for Megan look like? Or is there such a thing?
Chaos. Collective, organized chaos. It varies based on project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So are a lot of your projects what you might describe as shorter term, like within a few months at the most, or do you have longer term arrangements with some entities?
My architectural ones tend to be longer term. Those naturally go on. The sensory room projects and sensory program ones tend to be, I'd say, a medium length where they might run 3 to 6 months. But a lot of them are, shorter term projects. But then some of the partnerships, I've done a lot of work over the last few years with the Madonna School. And then as they've been expanding into the inclusive education program to support special ed in the Catholic schools, I've been helping support the assistive technology needs of those students and in collaboration with Madonna School, getting some professional development for the teachers. So sometimes I have, through partnerships, we're doing multiple programs or multiple projects, but it's kind of an ongoing process.
No, that's helpful. I was just trying to kind of get what it looked like.
My calendar is colorful.
Well, yeah. I have one of those. But. Other questions for Meg?
Something. I feel like something popped up in the chat. Maybe it didn't.
We were just clarifying AT for all, if it was a .com or org and all those things.
.com. Yeah. Anything else? No? Okay. I will put my commission person hat back on.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you so much.
We're going to have to talk after the meeting because you don't know how many people we have in common.
Oh.
They are legion, as you were describing some of your activities. But that was really interesting. Thank you. And thanks for stepping up on short notice. It's greatly appreciated.
Happy to.
So at this point, we really don't have old business or new business because we're not on a formal agenda. We did talk before the meeting about plans moving forward in terms of presenters for the remainder of this year. And so, but our plans are, what's the word? They're tentative. They're kind of drafty. But needless to say, we're really trying to focus on areas and issues that are of greatest importance and greatest priority to the people that we're here to represent. So with this, I think we have plenty of time for member activity announcements. And Megan's been talking for a while, so I'll turn to Nancy first.
Well, the summer months are always really busy for us as an organization. We have a lot of transition programs for students 14 to 21. And so one little piece of nugget, we actually started transition programs in 1983. And so we started last week a 6-week employment conference in Lincoln where we have 14 students that are actually staying on UNL campus, and they travel from the campus to their jobs every day, either walking or using public transportation. They're living in a dorm, sharing a room. I think this year with COVID that they have individual rooms, but learning to navigate the cafeterias, which can be very complex when you have a lot of students around. And it really helps them become aware of college life and the campus life, as they're looking at post-secondary opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities if anyone would want to contact me for deafblind. The Deafblind Institute is going to be held via Zoom this year again because of COVID, and just everything was kind of up in the air. And that's in July. And then I think starting next Tuesday, the regional, there's a regional transition program for students who are deaf and hard of hearing and deafblind. And every Tuesday and this is just for students and their families, there's going to be a topic that relates to transition. And then we're holding a robotics training, and we have 20 participants doing a robotics training, and then they're going to have kind of a bot battle at the end. And our next Board of Commissioners meeting is going to be, and we're governed by a Board of Commissioners. Our next Board of Commissioners meeting will be in Lincoln on July 31st, which also is the end of our employment program and the end of the robotics training. So they will be able to share what they gained with our Board of Commissioners at that time.
Thanks, Nancy. I'll jump up to the board. Eric, do you have any announcements?
I do not. I am, well, I suppose I am working on a project actually that I could probably get a little input from Megan. I am working to get a pool lift installed at our apartment complex and doing some fundraising and working with ATP and our regional manager on getting that installed for myself and a few of my neighbors that are also disabled. So that's been an ongoing project for my past 3 weeks.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. I'll let you guys two talk as opportunity presents. Rachel?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Megan, so much for sharing. I don't have any announcement.
Thanks, Rach. Laura?
We also have our youth transition program starting in July, ages 14 to 21 or 24. We are doing it via Zoom one more year. Hopefully by this time next year, we'll have a new remodeled building and a new conference room, which I'm excited about. So if anybody's interested, they can get a hold of us at the league and we can tell you more about it. We just talk about topics, what it's going to take to go from young adult to adulthood. And it's 6 weeks also.
Thanks, Laura. Oh, go ahead, Nance.
Laura, do you have a flyer about your program that you can just share? I know it might be too late to register for this year, but it would be great to have that information for the future.
Sure, I can share it.
Thanks, guys. Jen?
Hi. I think the only thing that I have to share is we wrapped up a school year in a pandemic. So we're pretty excited about that. And it was a really successful year. Our students learned and they thrived. And that's, I think, the best that we could ask for in the situation we were in. So I'm really proud of the work of our teachers and staff and families to kind of come together and make this school year happen in a productive way.
Congratulations. That's pretty cool. Taryn, any announcements?
I don't have anything.
Okay, thanks, Taryn. Megan, now I let you catch your breath. So.
Thanks, Mark. The only thing I have is same thing I mentioned last month. The Blade 5K fundraising race is coming up on July 10th, and I think there's still about a week to register. It'll be held out at Zurinsky Lake, and the proceeds that are raised are used to buy athletic prosthetics for individuals. Last year, they were able to fit 2 children with prosthetic runners. So kind of exciting. I will be there, and if you come out, you'll also be able to take a peek at the future inclusive playground that'll be out at Zurinsky. So double excitement.
Very good, thank you. I have a few items. First, just a reminder, we're in our new building now. We have been for a few months. We had our grand opening earlier this month. We're at 68th and Pine on the UNO Pacific campus, while before we were at the UNMC campus, which means I'm terminally late for Mayor's Commission meetings because I have another 2 miles to drive. we are doing some innovative things with working with youth. We're having hi- high school students coming in for week-long sessions on just kind of learning about disability, and it's really a focus more on, if they're interested in that as a potential opportunity for employment. Um, I also wanted to mention that Monroe Meyer is involved with the Disability Education Series, which is actually a partnership between a number of organizations. Um, every month on the first Thursday at 1 o'clock, we do a Zoom presentation, and we presented everything from a celebration of the ADA to special education to um, discussion of the Olmsted planning that's going on in Nebraska, which is pretty exciting. Um, uh, and so, if you are interested in that, we've been getting pretty huge turnouts, like 50 to 100 people per session. You can contact me, and I'm happy to get you the, the contact information on how to be involved in that. It's just an attempt by stakeholder agencies and professionals to uh, ensure that the public is aware as possible, um, in terms of issues as they relate to people with disabilities and their families. So I'm trying to think of what our student weeks are, but we had our first 2 weeks, and we're looking at starting it, to kind of go back to my first point, uh, we're looking at starting that as something that we're going to be doing routinely this fall. And so we had our first 2 weeks, and uh, it was kind of fun for me because I went to Benson High School here in Omaha, and we had a whole room full of Benson students that I was talking to. And so we had a very serious discussion about the nickname for the school mascot. But in any case, with that, I think are there any other questions, comments, or issues for the good of all? Everybody is shaking their heads. Um, we'll be meeting again on July 26th. The tentative presenter will be a representative of PTI Nebraska, which is the state Parent Training and Information Center as it relates to early intervention and special education services. Those folks, the phones ring off the hook there. They do a lot of work, and there's a lot of expertise. So I'm looking forward to a very informative discussion. So with that, I will not formally adjourn us, but say we are adjourned for the month. And thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone.